Hello, Julia. Hello.
Hello,
Hi.
happy to see you.
On the program.
Let me just check. Feels like there is some issue with the sound. Do you hear me well?
Yeah, I do hear you well. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank
Now I
you.
can.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking in your schedule to answer present to the program.
Yes, sorry, I'm in between St. Petersburg, where the meeting with some of the African leaders was taking place, and Moscow. I'm just on the way back driving, so you caught me in the woods.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm really honored. I'm really honored. I hope we are going to have an interesting conversation. And I know you are an expert in international relations and politics. So I'm really looking forward to hear your thoughts. And while we are still waiting for Patrick to join in, he told me he was busy and he'll come in later. So I just want to start with you, and so we go ahead with the program while the records go on. So, Yulia, I think you're joining in from Russia, please.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I just want you to introduce yourself and tell me like what you do.
My name is Yulia Berg. I'm a political scientist, but aside for being a political scientist, I have been involved in many applied projects, starting from numerous NGO activities and the work of non-governmental organizations to GR, which is government.
Yulia, your microphone seems to be off. Hello? Yulia? Yulia, can you hear me? Yulia? Your mic seems to be off. You're muted.
Was all of it lost? I
Yeah,
think I was having
I'm sorry.
call.
Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't get you.
Shall I say it again?
Yes, please. Jesus.
All right. Let me do it again. Let me do it again. So my name is Julia Berg. I'm a political scientist. I'm a political scientist with the broad experience in practical projects, starting from the work of non-governmental organizations and international cultural and civil diplomacy projects to projects related to business integrations, government relations, GR, and many more. So I'm also on the organizing committee of the International Municipal BRICS Plus Forum. That is an annual event taking place in St. Petersburg. And I've spent several years working in different countries in Africa, Asia, Europe, and the United States. So yes, what I'm doing lately is mostly, let's say, international business promotion and civil diplomacy projects.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank you very much for that. Patrick, can you hear me, please?
There is Patrick.
Yes, that is Patrick. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, thank you for joining
Yes.
in. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you for joining in. Thank you for joining in. I understand you're busy, and I will just start with you. Can you introduce yourself and what you do, please?
Thank you very much. Yes, I am working since 8 years for different think tanks for analytic of geopolitics in Austria, Russia, and now also for the Center of Geostrategic Studies in Belgrade, in Serbia. And I was many times in conflict zones and also take part in different scientific conferences, international. And I'm also working for people's diplomacy, so for connecting the different parts of the world and to support the the work together in different levels, not only in diplomacy, so also in scientific relations, and also when there are problems in different things between the states or the societies, so to find solutions. This is my first business.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm honored. I just want to introduce a little of myself so you know me. My name is Destiny Afu, based in Cameroon. I'm the founder of the Afu Foundation. That's organizing this program now. And I really work on issues pertaining to governance, international relations, and international development. That's a bit about me. So you're all welcome to the program, and I think we should start the conversation. And today we're going to be looking at a very crucial topic. I term it crucial because it is very pertinent in the world today. Now, the topic of today is rethinking international cooperation in the world's hardest areas. Now, the world as we see today, it's full of many disasters, many troubles, from geopolitical instabilities to economic volatility, climate-related disasters. And the truth is, all these problems affect vulnerable and marginalized areas. And Patrick, I understand you've been working in areas that are conflicted. I just want to find out your opinion, what you think can be a new strategy that international development actors can adopt to make sure strategies involved in resolving conflicts in conflicted areas or bringing an end to global challenges in conflicted areas. What new strategies can be adopted, please? Patrick?
Excuse me, the connection is very bad, but I hope you hear me.
Yes.
So I think important is to grow up more structures for communication between the different countries, and between the different also NGOs or something else. We need more talk about cooperation between different countries. We are now living, you can see it in our analysis, we can see that we are living in a block world. So we have different blocks. We have this Chinese, Russian block. We have this American sector, I call. This is America and Europe. And they like to have influence first also for Africa, because they like to get the resources of Africa, America and Europe. And now we have also this expansion of the Chinese economy. And in this you can see in which world we are living. And this is also important about disasters, about crisis. So the problems they happen in the world, different problems, and also really big disasters are the problem of one of these blocks. So when there is a problem, so it's the problem of China, or it's the problem of Russia, it's the problem of Africa or America. And I think we need more dialogue and cooperation with blocks. So this is the only big solution. So we need a level of communication with state structures, because states are against, this conflict in Europe and Russia, and also America and Russia, and maybe between Russia and China. And also we don't know what's happening in Africa in the next years. It's also a problem. So we need different structures for communication, for emergencies, first for emergencies, between the different societies of the world, but not on the level of the state communication, because the state are very under the influence of political interests. So we need also the communication between NGOs, between organizations for health, for development, and also between the business. It's also important, because we couldn't trust in the seriousness of states, because the states now are under big influence of political interests, of international political influence. And for small states, in example. It's very difficult to solve problems. Not only big disasters, so also for little problems, they haven't the power because they must find a partner and something else. So I think the only way to solve the big problems that will be happening in the future, we need a second level of communication. And this level will be maybe NGOs, maybe the civil society, maybe different interesting groups, but not on the state level, because the state levels are only under the influence of all this, what's happened in the geopolitical aspect. And now we are living in a global world, but living in a global world of borders. And we have now a border between Europe and Russia. Yes. And maybe there will be also different borders between the African states when the West like to have this because they must escalate some situation. So we need more levels of communication for the future. This is my analysis, and must grow up this with good structures that can work on this level. First, for these emergencies, what's happened, not only for natural disasters, not only for economical crisis or something else, or pandemics or something else. So also for the daily business, it's important to have different structures parallel to the state structures. This we must grow up in every country, also first in Africa, I think. This is my analysis. But yes, so sorry about this, that I must also leave because now I have this meeting and I have many things to do. But I'd like to give this statement first for the people also in Africa.
Yes,
please. So they must understand. First of all, the elites need to understand that we need more different structures to support our interests and the interests of the people in the different countries to be sovereign. And we can also find a solution for the problems that we have in the past. This is very important to have this. And I'm also ready to support different organizations or groups to grow up these connections with other international groups in other countries. So, and we must work together to be sovereign and to be protected for every case of emergency on which level it's happened. But we need more and more civil society structures. And yes, this is my statement I like to say, and I think it's very important to have this.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick. I know you're. I think you have to go now for a meeting, something like that. So I thank you for your contribution. Thank you a lot for your contribution. I'm going to keep in touch with you. Julia, can you hear me?
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay,
Julia. Yes,
I'm
here. I can hear you well. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I want to put this question to you. It's like the same question I asked Patrick. What new innovative strategies do you think international development actors can employ to make sure that solutions that are targeted towards meeting global challenges, especially in conflicted and neglected areas, can be more effective? What new strategies do you think can be adopted by international development?
In the first place, I absolutely agree with what Patrick was saying regarding communication and introduction of different platforms where various regional or international groups of activists, experts, academics, and other groups could communicate. This is absolutely essential, and it's about establishing platforms for those horizontal ties. But at the same time, I would add two more points that I consider extremely important. Number one is that those actors are supposed to be sovereign, which means that they're supposed to be decision makers in their areas, right? And sovereignty is absolutely key because what we have been observing quite a lot in different countries and regions and different communities is that if those actors that are involved into communication and various discussions are not sovereign, which means that they just perform or act on somebody else's agenda.
Yeah.
It kind of kills the spirit of and kills the possible synergy. It kills the possibility to come up with realistic solutions and outcomes that would reflect their actual interests, because there is a saying that goes, who pays plays the music. So when we have such communities gathering with some very clear, let's say, actor implementing their own agenda, this is just not going to work out for the interest and benefit of all the participants and the communities that those participants represent. So number one is definitely sovereignty, which is essential for effective communication and establishing businesses and anything else. This is number one, and number two is I think making sure that the parties involved into different kinds of processes also have a clear in countries as well, that they have the economic or material basis for the projects they're implementing, because in terms of all of the various discussions and expert discussions and talks and everything else, if nothing follows in terms of projects where both parties invest, the ties are just not going to be as strong as they could have been if there were also business ties involved, right? So once you have the let's say ideological or this part that deals with discussions and talks and expert opinions and academics, it's beautiful, but then it has to have some clear foundation, some material foundation, because otherwise it's just going to remain in the space of air and in the realm of discussions. So those 2 points I think are important. Number one, something material, something specific has to follow. Would those be even like small-sized businesses or joint projects or joint ventures or whatsoever else? There has to be something to ground it down, and to put those ideas down to earth. And number two, the actors involved are supposed to be sovereign in order to reflect their own interests and interests of their communities, because otherwise it just becomes a show aimed to basically what's the word for it? Legitimize somebody else's agenda.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. I heard you talking about actors being sovereign, and I want us to look at. I want us to really look at actors like the United Nations, the IMF, and what have you, all the global organizations we have around the world right now who are playing an active role in the aspect of international development. In your opinion, do you think these actors, because that there is a growing skepticism that most of these actors are driven by an ideology, which is the Western ideology more, and I don't know. Do you think under such skepticism, international development can really be brought in a fair, in a free and fair way in areas that are really conflicted or fragile?
Well, the existing institutional design at the global level is monopolized by the Western actors, and if you look at the UN, the discussions about the reforms that are needed have been ongoing for many years by now, but it's not happening. So the organization has become quite corrupt. And the trick over here is that in many cases, such organizations, like some of the UN structures and the Red Cross and the IMF, they are the last ones interested in actually solving the problem, because once they solve the problem, they do not get the budget and they lose control over a specific, country or region or whatsoever else. So we have been seeing all those peacekeeping missions, let's say in Africa as well, in the DRC, in the Central African Republic, but how effective have they been? And I mean, there was some independent analysis done on the activities of MINUSCA, which is every year stuck in many scandals related to various kinds of misdemeanors and various kinds of crimes being committed by the members, and it's all open data that can easily be found on the internet. But also there was some independent financial audit that has shown that out of almost 900 million that is actually that is supposed to be spent on resolving the numerous issues faced in the Central African Republic, only around 350 go to the actual purposes. So unfortunately, that's the situation that we see, and it's quite clear when you analyze the activities of such international institutions in India, in many of the African countries. So they're not really interested in resolving the problems again, because once they do so, they will lose their budgets. And that's a paradoxical trick over here, because the ones who are supposed to be using their skills and resources, and all of the potential to deal with those issues, they're just not doing it, and doing so would have made them lose the purpose of their existence, if you know what I'm saying. So
Yes.
it's not the way it should function. But then there is another side to it, and this other side to it just shows how as the years were going by, they have monopolized their areas of interest in a way in which other actors cannot just come in. I mean, if you have some project being funded by the IMF, you probably will not see some Indian company implementing this project somewhere, I don't know, in the South America or in Africa. Probably you will see the very same contractors that are being promoted. So what they're doing in terms of this let's say Western driven globality, they act like they give you the money with one hand, and then with the other hand they take it for their contractors, right? The ones who actually implement those projects. So this system obviously is quite outdated, and like they say, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we have been observing the situation when, for almost 70 years, those international institutions have been pretty much monopolized. And the reason I'm saying 70 years is because the current structure basically came about after the World War II. So the UN was founded right after in order to, keep the global policies under control. But then, as the decades were passing by, the power was getting more and more and more concentrated in the very same hands.
Okay, thank you. Now, I want to ask you a question, which is really close personal, because it relates to your country. And I'm talking about the war going on now between Russia and Ukraine. I'm sure you're very much knowledgeable and familiar with that, and you have some viable contributions to make. Now, there's been a lot of talk. Now, if you have to look at the efforts which have been done to resolve this conflict, it has, should I say, it has mainly failed, not because on the part of Russians, not because on the part of even Ukrainians, but on the part of the Western allies that supply Ukraine with weapons and everything they need to keep continuing the war. So I just want to put this question to you. Ukraine right now, it's like a fragile state. It's like a region in conflict, and from all looks of things, the Western countries are refusing to cooperate with Russia in resolving the conflict, and even the Ukrainians, I think, are doing the same. Do you think the level of international cooperation should be left only to the hands of states, or should they be brought into an institution of global influence like the United Nations, or some other body may be created or something? What do you think? Hello?
Well, you see, it's a very good question. It's a very good question and quite a complicated issue. given the fact that Ukraine is used as a proxy, country, and the actual issues are not between Russia and Ukraine, but more between Russia and, let's say, the collective West, as they call it, or NATO. So NATO is supplying weapons. NATO has been training Ukrainian officers and has been preparing them for the war with Russia at least since 2014, but actually even earlier than that. So NATO and the West are a party to this conflict, and that's quite clear to everyone, because what the Russian troops are facing during the special military operation is Ukrainians with NATO weapons, basically, and trained by NATO instructors and so on. So it's quite clear. Yet at the same time, what else I would like to point out is that countries like China, countries like India, and there was just this recent visit of some of the heads of African states to St. Petersburg just yesterday that was taking place. They were focused on a different agenda. So they are talking about, they're also talking about the ceasefire, but then they're talking about the necessity to work together to restore all of those regions, to focus on, business, to focus on restoring the connection. There is much more understanding and respect of both sides and of their interests, because Russian geopolitical interests and background and history and culture has been pretty much ignored by all of those Western initiatives, meaning that you cannot just establish your NATO bases all around the Russian borders and think that it's fine, and then talk about the closest countries joining NATO and posing direct threats, and that being okay. So if you look at the map of the NATO bases, you will see why some of the Russian actors have been worried for many years by now, especially when you also see how many of those color revolutions, how many of those soft power activities have been taking place all around the Russian borders in order to fuel this hatred, in order to to make sure that the relation of the public, or the attitude of the public towards Russia, is getting worse and worse. So I mean, there is a lot published about it, a lot of information available as open source information. But the key point is that, and that's one of the reasons why the Russian special military operation is unfolding slowly, aside for some systematic problems that have been revealed. But it's also that there is no aim to destroy Ukraine or those cities or those regions, because it's clear that, just like it happened last year, that those regions, they were not just, destroyed and left as they were, but they were taken into the country, and now active restoration is taking place. One of the best examples is Mariupol, a city that has suffered a lot of damage last year, but now it's not even recognizable because a lot of new buildings were being erected and a lot of work has been done. So there is no crazy attempt to shoot oneself into the leg, because the ones that would have to deal with restoration of all of those regions would be Russia, with probably with help, assistance, and investment coming from China, India, and many other countries. And the same thing was quite noticeable yesterday during the talks that were held between the African leaders, especially Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, who is kind of leading the group, right, and the Russian president Vladimir Putin. So they were also focused on, how those issues, how we could overcome those issues in order to bring back, the trade, bring back the joint work on agriculture and fertilizers and grain and everything else. Because I mean, the world is very much interconnected, and you have to consider so many factors when you're looking at geopolitics, right? And the ones interested in this conflict to be escalating and to be ongoing for many years more is clearly the United States, because this is how they're basically moving the industry and production from Germany to the United States. This is how they're making sure that the European Union is getting weaker and weaker. And the European Union, after these 1.5 years of the conflict in Eastern Europe, they're more and more and more dependent on the U.S. itself. So this is how the U.S. is just making sure that their influence is much more. And I would say, in terms of answering the question, chi buono, who benefits? Clearly, one of the first ones to benefit is the United States. I mean, the economic ties between Russia and Europe have been cut. The pipeline, the Nord Stream, was exploded, and nobody's even trying to hide the fact that they're happy about it. And we've seen those statements being made publicly. So, I mean, this is how a lot is being kept under control. And it's the very same strategy that was being used, by colonial powers in India, by colonial powers in Africa. When the opportunities to rise up and to talk about own interests are just being suppressed from the very beginning. Because, I mean, without the African resources, the European Union wouldn't have existed with, such a blossoming as it used to be economy. And without the resources coming from India, the UK wouldn't have been so, manicured and rich in terms of their wealth and possessions. So it's a very disbalanced system, and I think that the current happenings are just triggering this process that is inevitable when the global economy and the system of international relations would be revised based on the actual resources, like keeping it real, and the new system of trade and exchange should be based exactly on that. Like, okay, what do you have? Let's see what is the value and how it's corresponding to the value we have, because the current system is a huge bubble. I mean, you cannot have an economy in which you cannot have a global economy in which the global debt combined is like 10 times more than the global GDP. It's nonsense. It's nonsense, and it's a bubble that would explode sooner or later. But someone is making quite a lot of money along the way.
Thank you, Yulia. You're really giving me some interesting points there, and I really love them. And the fact is, we have just about 6 minutes to go, so I'm just going to ask you the last question. And I hope we can continue this conversation some other time, because I have to attend to it. So, as a political analyst, where do you see the world in the next 50 years or 20 years from now? Would there be more actors internationally cooperating to solve world problems, or are we just going to have a war that is split within factions and ideologies, in conflict and in disaster? What do you think?
I'm absolutely sure that there is an ongoing transformation. And in March last year, I founded an expert club called Globus, the idea of which was that, like the ocean consists of many little drops, the vision of what's going to be happening in the world consists of little globes coming from different experts. So the idea was to talk about what experts would wish the world to be after the transformation, because all we can do now, we can observe and analyze some of the trends, but no fortune teller, no tarot card reader would tell you exactly what will be happening. And moreover, a lot depends on us. Would the expert community be not just criticizing, but also coming up with some alternative proposals? Would the business be investing their money and their time and effort and everything else into constructive projects, or would they be trying just to make some money here and now and escape and run away and enjoy their cocktails at Bahamas somewhere? So the future is being what is the saying? The future belongs to the one that planned for it, right? And we do know that the globalists and like Klaus Schwab and the Davos Forum and everything, they have their plans put down on paper. They talk about it, they publish books about it, but where is that alternative plan coming from the expert community that does not agree with Klaus Schwab? And if that's part of the expert community is just being silent, then it means that they do not deserve to shape that future. Because, well, I mean, it's not how it works. You cannot just sit there and criticize doing nothing and then expect the future to be bright in your own understanding. So that's my take on this. And what I've done in March last year was founding this expert club Globus. We've had several discussions to identify the key issues. We're planning for more talks and conferences to see what we would wish the future to be like, to come up with our own vision of the future. And I'm very happy that this conversation is happening today, because it's also, I think, it could be a good platform and a good contribution to this alternative plan. So if there are things we don't like, we shouldn't just criticize, but we should say how we see, a better future.
Oh, thank you very much. I want to appreciate you for that. So we remain optimistic about the future, I think. So
Yes.
yeah. So how can is the club open to? Is it open membership or paid membership? How can someone be part of it? And how can
No. It's I mean, I will just make sure that you're invited to one of the next events, and
Okay.
I will share some of the materials from the previous talks. But a lot of it has been happening in like 1-to-1, 1-to-2 formats. Also,
Okay.
because not everyone is ready to go public with this kind of things. Just because there is too much pressure, and especially in Europe, pressure and threats, and people facing different kinds of negative consequences if they say something publicly.
No,
A lot
thank
of
you.
witch hunts.
Yeah, thank you. I understand. I'm really looking forward to that, and I look forward to share my input. So, how can someone get connected with you? You want to share your email or WhatsApp contact or any social media platform where they can connect to you and follow your work?
Yes. Well, Clarice has my contact, so she can just share it with you on Telegram. Telegram is optimal. Yes.
Oh, sure. All right. Thank you. I want to thank you very much for your time. Unfortunately, we have come to the end of the program. And I want to thank you immensely for your contribution. I hope we are going to continue this conversation all the time. And I look forward to other further collaborations on any projects you have, any engagements you have that we can work together on. Thank you very much. May you have
Absolutely,
a nice
yes. I think I will be in Cameroon at the beginning of July. So
day. Okay.
it's highly likely that I'll travel to Cameroon. So see you there if you are in Douala.
Yeah, sure. I will travel to Douala just to see you, of course.
Yes.
Thank you very
Perfect.
much.
All right. Let's be in touch then.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice time.
You too.
Thank you.